Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to take a look at an awesome power supply from Coolermaster. This is the new and updated version of the MWE 550W Gold V2 fully modular. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at Coolermaster's new and improved version of their MWE 550W gold rated power supply. This is the V2 fully modular. There's a ton of different versions of this actually on the market at the moment. There is the MWE 500, the 550, 650, etc, etc. There's lots of different options for different voltages and wattages, etc. But essentially I think this is the one that comes down to being the kind of the budget builder's choice. Now obviously it's a gold rated power supply, so we've got approximate efficiency across the board of around about 90% efficiency, which is absolutely awesome. And I have actually been over to the 80+ site, downloaded the specifications of it and gone through it in some detail to see what it's all about. I'll be putting that on the screen for you so you can see that. But essentially this does actually review very, very well. Now I'm not entirely sure what the components are inside. Unfortunately, our good friend Johnny Guru, it seems to be kind of taking a little bit of a rest at the moment, so we don't have a review of this as of yet. It is quite new and is released only in March 2020, so as things go and what with production and shipping, etc., this one is only just becoming to hit the shelves now. Now I was actually really lucky. This was spotted as a deal by one of our Discord members, and this actually was retailing for around about £35 here in the UK, which is an absolutely phenomenal price for a power supply regardless of its specifications, but for a gold rated fully modular, yeah, that was exceptionally good. And we did post it in the community section, so if you want to keep up to date on the latest deals that are coming out, do subscribe to the channel and click on the chime notification and choose all comments and all output, and basically you'll get that into your feed, so when we do find bargains you'll be amongst the first to know about it. Now there was a few of these available, quite a few of our Discord members have picked them up already, so hopefully they'll all be very pleased with this. What we're going to do in today's video is do a unboxing, go through some of the specifications, some of the features, and look at the cable lengths, all that kind of stuff. So if you are considering getting one of these and you want to put it into your new build, you'll be furnished with all the information you need and whether or not it's going to fit and basically suit your system. So first of all, let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see, it's actually pretty nice packaging, Coolermaster logo there. Make it yours. You've got the model number, so MWE 550 Gold. This is the V2 fully modular. Comes with a 5-year warranty, which is absolutely excellent. It's got upgraded DC to DC conversion, and also it's got that also important 80+ gold. On the sides, a few more specs, and on the back it goes into actually a considerable amount of detail about what you actually get in here. So you've got the increased operating temperature, so over the V1 this now has a 5-degree increase in what it can actually handle. So previously it was rated at 45 centigrade as kind of like the maximum temperature, whereas now this will run quite happily up to 50 degrees C, which gives you a little bit of headroom for overclocking and all that kind of stuff. Also you've got an upgraded fan, so this is basically now using a hydrodynamic bearing, which is kind of the same as a fluid dynamic bearing. It comes down to basically copyright issues on that, so if you want to look up the difference between hydrodynamic bearing and fluid dynamic bearing, they work in a very similar principle, although one is copyrighted, the other one isn't. It is certainly an upgrade over using a sleeve bearing, that kind of thing, and will hopefully last the test of time. Also as well, because it is a kind of fluid dampened bearing, it is going to be much quieter, and certainly from what we can see from the specifications, it's pretty much silent in use even at full load. It does have a kind of 0 RPM feature, so if there isn't much load on the system, less than kind of 10 to 20%, then the fan will essentially stop. It then goes up to around about 500 RPMs for the kind of the mid-range, and goes up to 1400 or so at the top end. Again, even at that, it is pretty much silent. Also as well, a nice feature which we're starting to see a little bit more on more high-end power supplies is the fact we've got dual EPS connectors. So if you've got one of the new modern motherboards from either Intel or AMD, and you've got those 2 EPS connectors at the top, now I don't mean the 2 4s which make an 8, we're talking 2 8s, so this can power pretty much most boards. What is going to be lacking slightly, especially with the 550, if you're using that high-end a system, chances are you're going to have a high-end graphics card, so maybe you want to look a little bit further at the range, maybe the 650, the 750, and so on. Cabling wise, it gives you all the dimensions and lengths there. Again, I'll put that on the screen so you can see that in more detail. Also, it talks about the fan curves, etc., and also the efficiency, which is pretty important. It is a very minute difference between the different 80 plus ratings, if I'm completely honest with you. The bronze rating, which is kind of like the lowest one essentially, is kind of 80% efficiency. This one is roughly in the kind of 90% efficiency pretty much through the entire range. So looking at the detailed specs on the 80 plus site, it actually only narrowly misses out on being on the next rating up by a very, very small margin. So this seems to be a very good power supply in testing. On this side of the box goes into more detail about the specifications, so I'll put that on the screen full size so you can see what that's all about, and it tells you about the cables, but we'll find out more about that when we take it out of the box. So when we open up the packaging, first of all we're greeted with a user guide, which is yeah, pretty handy, and again goes into a lot of detail about the individual cables and their pinout configurations, etc. Also included in the pack is sadly a what I believe is a European style kettle lead, so that's no use to us. Next up, there's a whole bunch of modular cables, which we'll check out in detail shortly. So the final part of the puzzle is the actual power supply itself. And as you can see, pretty nice looking unit, pretty much all in a satin matte black finish, and actually feels pretty heavy. Not quite as heavy as the one we had previously, which was the EVGA one. That one did seem to be a little bit more heavy, so sometimes you can kind of judge a power supply's quality by its weight, although that isn't the kind of be all and end all. Generally, it's going to be down to the components and how they're configured internally. This one actually has a warranty void if removed sticker on it, so I've not taken it apart to see what was actually inside and whether the components are kind of Japanese capacitors, that kind of thing. I'm pretty much hoping that the main capacitor in here, the biggest one, is a Japanese construction, but again, I'm not entirely sure at the moment. If I do take this apart at some point and I find out, then I'll update the video description below so you'll know that detail. So we're on this side, let's take a look at the fan. So we've got the Coolermaster fan in there, which is what appears to be a modified version of the Silencio fan. This is actually a 7-blade unit, and again, RPMs between 500 and around about 1400 RPMs. It's supposed to be very quiet, and actually due to the way that this whole thing is laid out, generally because this is kind of quite a narrow mesh or kind of grill design on there, it's going to allow a little bit more airflow and hopefully less turbulence. In the center, there's a really nice Coolermaster logo, which is appears to be metal, so that's a pretty nice thing to see. Again, I would have taken the screws out and taken the fan out to have an exact look to see what model fan it is, but again, I don't want to reduce my 5-year warranty if at all possible. Moving around onto this side, so we've got the Coolermaster logo and also the MWE 550W fully modular. So again, if you're using this in a system where you've got an open section, so this is visible, it's going to look pretty nice. And actually looking at the kind of colouring on there, it would actually fit in really nice with ASUS's Tough design. So if you're a big fan of the ASUS Tough kind of design ethic, then this may actually tie into that kind of build very nicely. Moving around to the back, sadly there's no eco switch on this one, which some people may disapprove of. Personally, for me, if it's a nice quiet fan, it makes very little difference, but certainly some people may be displeased with that. There is a pretty decent rocker switch on there, and obviously you've got your cable input, and there's a really nice kind of Coolermaster hexagonal mesh there to let airflow through. Moving on to the other side, we've got another label which goes into the full specifications, and of course we've got our 80 plus gold rating badge on there. Again, if you want to find out more about that, we'll put some links in the video description so you can go to 80 Plus's site and look up the information for yourself. One thing I did find is the 80 plus rating does appear to be mostly actually ratified by 80 plus for the 115 voltage ratings rather than the EU 230 ones, although generally the 230 ratings would normally be slightly higher than the 115 anyway, due to the way that voltage and efficiency works. It's also got the model number on there, so if you want to check out, so it's the MPE 5501 AFAAG, and it's got the outputs there. So on the 12 volt rail, which is the most important one really, we are putting out 45.8 amps, so that equates to approximately, well, exactly actually on there, 549 watts, which therefore gives it its 550 watt rating. Again, as with some of the more better known power supplies, I don't want to say better quality, but certainly some of the more branded ones, they've chosen to use the rating as the 12 volt rail rating of 550 watts rather than combining the 3 volt and 5 volt together to give you what would effectively be a 650 watt power supply. Looking at the bottom or the top, whichever way you look at it, yeah, completely bereft of any design, just that satin matte black finish. And onto the business end, we've got all our connectivity. So again, this is a fully modular power supply, so there's no captive cables whatsoever. So if you're building in maybe a ITX or micro ATX type system where you are limited on space, then you only need to connect up the cables that you actually are going to use. So this section over this side is for your main motherboard power. So connecting up both of those connects into the 24-pin motherboard connector. Then we've got 4 of these 8-pin connections, which can be used for either PCIe or for CPU connectivity. In the cabling, there's only actually one GPU cable, which splits into a dual 8-pin. So you will have one of those spare, even if you do populate it with all the cables that are included. You can, if you want to, pick up additional cables from Coolermaster. They do sell them individually, and quite often they do appear on the kind of second-hand market. These type of design have actually been around for a long, long time, at least 5 years that I'm aware of, especially with these 5-pin connectors here. And moving down to those, there's 3 of those 5-pin connectors. These are for your peripherals and your SATA type connections. There's 3 connections on there to go with the 3 cables we get actually supplied. So now it's time to take a look at the cables we actually get. And I've actually taken these out already and had a quick look at them. And they do appear to be actually pretty decent. They're quite a decent gauge cable. I couldn't tell you the exact gauge because, well, basically it doesn't say on them. Also on the bag, which is a nice touch, actually gives you a breakdown of all the individual cables and also their model numbers. So if you're looking for an additional cable, or maybe you lose one or damage one, you can quite easily use the Coolermaster part reference to order up a new cable. So the first cable we've got is our PCIe or PCI Express or GPU cable. So this terminates into a dual 8-pin or dual 6-pin or combinations thereof. So you've got your normal 6-pin and the kind of clip-on extra 2 pins. So you can connect up 2 at the same time, and there's a single plug. All of the plugs are actually labeled and marked up so you know exactly where to go. So this one says PSU, so this is one that plugs into the PSU, and on the other end it says PCIe, so again you know exactly where it has to go. That goes into a graphics card. Sadly, like I said, there's only one of those, but again, around about 550 watts, really having 2 of these, you might be getting into an area of where this is probably not man enough for that kind of job. Next up, we've got our EPS connectors. So again, there are 2 of those, which is really nice. So one of them, again, it says on there PSU, and on the other end it will say CPU. So you've got a single molded 8-pin, and also you've got a separate one. So if you're using a slightly older motherboard where you've only got a 4-pin, this one actually splits into 2, and you've got the extra 2 pins there. So you can just use one of those, you can use both together, or you can use all of them together and connect up to 16 pins in total. Next up, we've got our main 24-pin connector. So again, these are the nice flat black cables, or kind of licorice cables as I call them. Really easy to cable manage, and because they don't have that extra kind of braiding or sheathing on them, if you've got a slightly narrower case, then that works really well. Again, that splits into the 2 sections there, as we saw on the back of the power supply. These aren't actually labelled, but because of the size of them, there's physically only one location they can go actually on the back of the power supply anyway, so yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with that at all. The cable in itself, again, pretty decent quality, and the plug itself on the end is a fixed 24-pin, not a 20 plus 4-pin. So if you're using a slightly older motherboard and you're thinking about using it, do look out for the extra clearance on the end, just in case you might have issues there with it physically fitting into the board. I don't think there's many people would probably buy this power supply for a motherboard with a 20-pin connector, but you never know. So the last lot of connections are our peripheral and SATA connections. So on these we've got the 5-pin connection. This one is only wired for 4 because it's a Molex, and Molex has only ever used 4 pins. So that plugs into the back of the power supply, which then splits into what appears to be 4 Molex connectors. And I do like the way Coolermaster do these with the actual kind of push-in tabs, so you can actually kind of pull it and grab it quite easily. Molex connections can be a real pain in the backside to connect up sometimes, so yeah, it's good to see that. Again, these will be used for things possibly like water pumps, so maybe if you've got a water cooling solution, or maybe you've got a slightly older case where you've got Molex powered fans, or maybe some sort of fan controller, then you can use them for that. Obviously, again, because it's modular, if you don't need it, you don't need to use it. And the last 2 cables are identical, so these are our SATA connections. So again, we've got our 5-pin, 5-wired SATA connection, which plugs into the back of the unit, and then that terminates with each one of these actually having 4 SATA connections on there, which is really nice to see. Both of them, again, exactly the same in lengths. If you want to know the lengths, I will put them in the video description as well, so yeah, just in case you're interested, if they're going to go far enough. But they do seem to be usual sort of deal, about 28 inches, 24 inches, something along those lines, so should fit into pretty much most builds. Again, with these, if you don't need them, then you can simply leave them in the box for a time when they become necessary. So overall, what do I think of this? I think it's actually, for the price that I paid for it, and some of you other lucky people did, around about the sort of £35 mark. I did notice slightly after we posted it, it did go up to around about £39, and then eventually now it's gone back to something like about 45, almost £50. I think even at 45, £50, really, for what you get, a gold rated power supply, fully modular, those are the kind of prices you'd be expecting to pay anyway. So to be able to pick it up for anything less than that, I think is absolutely awesome. We do seem to be seeing at the moment, especially now at the very beginning of May 2021, we do seem to be seeing on Amazon that there are quite often some really good deals on power supplies, whether they're trying to get rid of some inventory because people aren't building PCs now, and it's kind of, the power supply is one of those things that you think of when you're trying to spec out a build and save money. So maybe it's trying to promote that, I don't know. Not sure what the reason is, but certainly it is of a benefit to all of us out there which are building PCs. And even if you're not building a PC currently, but you're looking for a power supply for something going on into the future, then definitely worth taking a look at this. Do keep an eye on the pricing. We will put affiliated links in the video description so you can check back to see if there's any deals. And again, obviously, if there are any other deals which crop up, do let us know. You can email me, mike@mikesunboxing.com. You can visit our Discord and go into our bargain section. But we do post discounts and deals pretty much every single day of the year. So if you want to stay in contact with us and be notified of those deals when they come around, just click on the subscribe button and all notifications. And then when we post these into the community tab, you'll be amongst the first to know about it. So anyway, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next post. Thanks for watching.